Have you ever felt like you're just losing it? Like you can't keep track of things anymore? You're struggling to follow conversations. It's more than just searching for a word. You're beginning to feel like things that were so effortless before are now a struggle. If this is something you're worried about, comment yikes down below. And if you're here because you're worried about somebody else, go ahead and comment, not me. Good for you, not me. Here's my story. I'd been a teacher for almost 20 years. I never thought I would retire, but that last year, everything fell apart. I I couldn't make it to meetings on the right days. I'd show up and think I was early, but I was early because no one else was coming. I was there on Tuesday instead of Thursday, or I'd have to be called down to my testing room again, or it would take me 3 tries to leave the building because 'cause I'd walk out without my glasses, then I'd walk out without my keys, then I'd walk out without my phone. Like, this was every day. I I was not reliable anymore. I had to retire early. I recognized this. This was a major touch of the dementia. Yeah, the big A, Alzheimer's. I recognized the signs because I'd watched my mother deteriorate over years. Now it was my turn. Is there anything you can do about it? I didn't think so. Turns out I was wrong. First of all, you do know Alzheimer's isn't mere forgetfulness. For example, my mother. It wasn't just that she couldn't remember names of things. She mistook her daughters for her long dead sisters. She was afraid of the clocks because they were always changing. She was nervous and suspicious and afraid. It was it was terrible. It robbed her of her ability to function in the world. But she didn't catch it all at once. Looking back, we realized she was developing signs and symptoms, but we were just too busy to notice. Like she stopped cooking. She wouldn't help us. We'd call looking for, a little assistance on how to make pie, and she wouldn't give us any answers. It was because she couldn't. We didn't know. But here's a really scary thing. Alzheimer's wasn't just starting then. It started maybe a decade or two before. Alzheimer's can take 20 years before symptoms begin to appear. Isn't that a scary thought? But here's the hopeful part. Not everybody develops Alzheimer's. And even genetics do not determine your fate. I blamed genetics at first. My mother had Alzheimer's. I had Alzheimer's. I assumed I had that gene, that ApoE4. You've heard of it. I think that's the right name. And decided, well, I guess I'm the lucky one. Out of my sisters, I'm the one who gets hit with the Alzheimer's, and there's nothing I can do about it. But that is not true. People with the ApoE4 gene do develop Alzheimer's, but many people with the gene do not. And some without the gene do develop Alzheimer's. So forget the gene already. um, Here, let me give you some facts here. Dr. Lisa Mosconi, an expert in the field, explains, and I quote, less than 1% of the population develops Alzheimer's because of a rare genetic mutation. For the rest of us, the real risk is determined by how we live our lives, end quote. Ha ha. So she is not alone in her opinion. There's another expert in the field, Dr. Bredesen. He says, quote, less than 5% of Alzheimer's cases are purely genetic. The rest, 95%, are influenced by lifestyle and environment. How about that? Dr. Bredesen adds, Alzheimer's is not only preventable, but in many cases reversible, end quote. That was such good news. There was hope. There was hope for me. There could be hope for you. So, what did I do with this new information? Let me fill you in. Well, I told you I retired early uh, because I couldn't teach anymore. And at that point, I still really didn't have hope, but I began reading up. I didn't bother looking into medications. I know that they did absolutely nothing for my sainted mother, so I wasn't going to go down that road. But I was surprised to see a lot of what people were talking about lifestyle improvements were things that were completely doable. Some I was already on top of. I'd already quit drinking, but some I was way off, like diet and exercise. I'm not going to talk about exercise today. That's still on my to-do list, but diet, I can change my diet. I can do that. Now, there isn't just one diet out there to treat Alzheimer's. I know some of you are already hearing this and thinking I'm crazy, but I'm telling you, there's plenty out there on this topic. But there are different diets, different opinions. There's the mind diet, there's the Bredesen protocol. Some people recommend the Mediterranean diet or any low carb diet. Uh, so there we go, confusion again, but it's okay. I read up on all of them and I recognized that they all had a couple of real basic things in common. Number one, cut out sugar and refined carbs. Number two, cut out ultra processed foods. That gets rid of most of your sugar and refined carbs. And number three, eat a diet full of whole, natural, unprocessed, or minimally processed foods. Okay, so I had a little bit of hope. I had my diet commonalities. I decided I would just implement a clean low carb diet, and that seemed to tick off most of the boxes. But although I was reading about this in the summer, I waited 6 months until I started. 6 months. I waited until all the Christmas cookies were gone in January. Oh, don't make my mistake. The reason was I didn't want to miss my Christmas cake. I really, really love my Christmas cake and all of the goodies. I didn't want to miss one more round of pie on Thanksgiving. I didn't want to miss the Christmas cookie. So I decided, okay, after the new year, I will change my diet. That was a mistake. Don't do that. We'll blame my touch of the dementia. Well, it's not really just the touch of the dementia. The truth was, I didn't believe it would make that much of a difference. So why rush into it, right? And I knew it wasn't going to be pleasant. And I thought that giving up sugar would be like giving up the drink. I gave up the drink. I haven't had any alcohol in years, and I won't. Not even for a treat or a special occasion. And if you have a struggle with alcohol, you understand why, right? People who don't struggle with alcohol, they don't get that. So I thought sugar would be the same way and that sugar would never touch my lips again. It's not really like that. It's a little bit like that, but not quite. You can eat clean 85, 90, 95% of the time, but have a cheat now and then. A cheat meal, a cheat dessert, a cheat, and then get back on the wagon pretty easily. I'm not saying without a little struggle, but pretty easily. It's not quite the same as with alcohol, at least not for me. Maybe with carnivores, but at least not with me. So again, I delayed because I thought, can food really change my brain? I didn't think so. But in January, I got into all of my cabinets and I cleaned out. I got rid of all of my pasta, my rice, my bread, my crackers, my treats, my prepackaged boxed foods, all of it went. And then I had to learn how to cook because I realized I didn't really know how to cook without a box of hamburger helper and the package directions. Turns out it's not really that hard. And I just learned a few simple recipes, and Lord love my husband. He enjoyed them and enjoys them currently on repeat each week. This food is good. It really wasn't that difficult. And then one day, and I'm not exactly sure when, a few months later, 6 months later, I realized something. I wasn't leaving the burners on anymore. I was able to leave the house in one shot. I came across this journal I'd been keeping, my Descent into Dementia journal, filled with quote unquote funny stories, if they weren't funny at the time. But uh, and I hadn't added to it in months and months. I realized I've actually improved. I am not struggling to follow conversations anymore. Am I 100%? Maybe not, but I'm a heck of a lot better than I was before I got the ultra processed foods out of my diet. Now, am I just exaggerating my results? Is it a little hopium that I'm living on here? Or maybe it is true about me, but I'm a unique case? No, no. The research backs all of this up. I'm going to check my notes here. A Mayo Clinic study found that people over 70 who eat a high carb diet are 4 times more likely to develop cognitive impairment. Are you catching that association? More carbs, more impairment. So maybe fewer carbs, less impairment, right? Dr. Mosconi says the diet is so important because, quote, the brain is the organ most easily damaged by a poor diet. And nobody's ever worried about the brain. We're worried about the little bit of fat we put on our bellies, right? We're not concerned about what's going on in our brain. It's harder to track what's going on in our brain. Are you ready to begin protecting your brain and feeding it what keeps it thriving and healthy and cognitive impairment free? I've already told you, but let me repeat. The simple steps. You're going to replace your sugary foods, and maybe you don't have to do it overnight. Take baby steps. I have a resource for that. If you really want to know about some baby steps, check the links in the description below. But you're going to take any of your snack foods and you're going to toss the sugars and the fried foods and instead snack on nuts and cheese and olives. That's pretty easy, right? You're going to learn a few recipes that that rely on high protein, high natural fat, and cook those instead of fast food and fried food and packaged food. And you're going to stop buying ultra processed foods. What are ultra processed foods? If it's pre-made, pre-packaged, if there's an ingredient list longer than 2, 3 ingredients, if there are ingredients on that list that you can't identify, you can't pronounce, you wouldn't have in your kitchen, you're holding an ultra processed food. Put it back on the grocery shelf. More than 70% of the groceries in our stores are ultra processed foods. Mm, yeah. Listen, you don't have to do it all at once. Like I said, I do have resources for baby steps, but please do begin. Don't make my mistake. Don't say yes, I am going to eat healthier and I'll wait 6 months to do it. That's a mistake. Start now, maybe tomorrow. Give yourself permission to cheat now and then. Give it a try. Dip your toe in. I think you'll find it's not so hard and the payoff is worth it. What's one change you're willing and ready to make? Can you think of something? Can you commit to something? Drop a note in the comments. I'd love to cheer you on. Thank you for your time today. Thank you for liking this video, for sharing this video, for subscribing to my new little channel. Until next time, let's all stay strong, wise, kind, and good by choosing good food for good health. YouTube thinks you'll like this video next.